Okay, so as I said, this hadith or this dua, it has an ocean of meaning to it, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, and we're going to cover all of what this dua entails. So let's go back to the story that is behind this dua, and then we'll walk through the meaning of, or the meanings that are captured in this supplication. فعن قيس بن عباد قال صلى عمار بن ياسر بالقوم صلاة أخفها فكأنهم أنكروها فقال ألم أتم الركوع والسجود قالوا بلى قال أما إني دعوت فيها بدعاء كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يدعو به اللهم بعلمك الغيب وقدرتك على الخلق أحيني ما علمت الحياة خيرا لي وتوفني إذا كانت الوفاة خيرا لي إلى آخر الحديث. On the authority of Qais ibn Ubad, who said that I prayed, that Ammar ibn Yasir, he prayed with some of the companions, and he prayed a prayer, and he kind of shortened, فَأَخَفَّهَا, he shortened the prayer to a point where many of the Sahaba began to take issue with him because it appeared that the salat was very short. And they began to question, did he even complete his ruku' and his sujood? He was so quick in the ruku' and sujood. And it was said to them, yes, he did. That Ammar, he said, yes, I did. He said, in the salat, I made dua with a dua that a Prophet ﷺ used to say. And the dua, and we'll take it line by line. I'll give you the whole dua first, and then we'll go back and we'll take it line for line, analyzing the deeper meanings that is behind this tremendous dua. The Prophet ﷺ used to supplicate, Allahumma bi ilmika al-ghayb wa qudratika ala khalq. O Allah, by your, meaning I ask you, by your knowledge of the unseen and your power over your creation. I ask you, Allahumma bi ilmika al-ghayb wa qudratika ala khalq. O Allah, by your knowledge of the unseen and your power over your creation. Ahyini ma alimta al-hayat khayran li. Give me life so as long as you know that life is beneficial for me. وَتَوَفَّنِي إِذَا كَانَتَ الْوَفَاةُ خَيْرٌ لِي. And take my life so as long as you know that death is more beneficial for me. And I'll just stop there. And there are a few more lines that is attached to this dua. That we start by saying, Allahumma bi'ilmika al-ghayb. And this is a mistake that a lot of people make when they make dua, especially people who are new converts to Islam. They always start with Allahumma or Allahumma. It's not Allahumma, it's Allahumma. Allahumma, meaning, oh Allah. It is the Arabic version of Ya Allah put into one word, Allahumma. So it's like saying Ya Allah, oh Allah, and instead of it being separated with the Ya and Allah, it is mudgham, it is put together, and extra meme is added to it, Allahumma, Allahumma. Oh Allah, bi'ilmika al-ghayb, by your knowledge of the unseen, wa qudratika ala al-khalq, and your power over the creation. Ahyini ma alimta al-hayat khayran li. Give me life so as long as you know that life is beneficial, is better for me. Wa tawaffani idha alimta al-wafat khayran li. And take my life when you know that death or me no longer living is better for me. So when we look at this portion of the hadith, and let me go through the whole hadith first, or the whole dua first, and then we'll go back through each of the meanings. Allahumma inni as'aluka khashyataka fil ghaybi wa shahada, wa as'aluka kalimat al-haqqi fil rida wa ghadab. O Allah, I ask you for fear of you, whether in public or in private. I ask you for the fear of you in public and in private. وَأَسْأَلُكَ كَلِمَةَ الْحَقِّ فِي الرِّضَى وَالْغَضَبِ. And I ask you for the ability to say the truth, whether I'm angry or whether I'm pleased with the person. I ask you for the ability to say the truth, whether I am pleased with the individual or I am displeased with the individual. وَأَسْأَلُكَ الْقَسْطِ فِي الْغِنَى wal-faqr. And I ask you for the ability to be fair, whether I'm rich or whether I'm poor. Meaning when I'm giving charity, that I don't give less because I'm poor, and I don't exceed the boundaries because I'm rich. I maintain a balance, whether I'm rich or whether I'm poor. وَأَسْأَلُكَ النَّعِيمَ لَا يَنْفَدْ. And I ask you for blessings that will never diminish or never dissipate. وَأَسْأَلُكَ قُرَّةَ عَيْنٍ لَا يَنْقَطِعْ. And I ask you for the pleasure of my eye that will never go away. وَأَسْأَلُكَ الرِّضَى بَعْدَ الْقَضَاءِ. And I ask you for pleasure with your decree. After your decree has been executed, I ask you for you to bless me with being pleased with whatever you have decided for me. وَأَسْأَلُكَ بَرْدَ الْعِيشِ بَعْدَ الْمَوْتِ. And I ask you for a tawassut, a tawassut. I ask you for a easy reckoning after my death. An easy reckoning after my death, an easy life after my death. وَأَسْأَلُكَ لَذَّةَ النَّظَرِ إِلَى وَجْهِكَ الْكَرِيمِ. And I ask you for the blessing of being able to look upon your noble face, subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَشَوْقِ إِلَى لِقَائِكَ فِي غَيْرِ ضَرَّاءٍ مُضِرَّةٍ وَلَا فِتْنَةٍ مُضِلَّةٍ. And I ask you for a shawq, a desire to meet you without being tested with some fitna or without being met with some hardship. Some people only want to meet Allah or only have a desire to meet Allah when things are going difficult for them or times are hard for them. We want to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at any and every moment, not just when things are difficult. Allahumma zayyinna bi zinatil iman. Oh Allah, adorn us with the beauty, with the beautification of iman, of true faith. وَجَعَلْنَا هُدَاةً الْمُهْتَدِينَ. And make us beacons of guidance for those who seek guidance. Make us beacons of guidance for those who seek guidance. As you can see, the dua is kind of extensive, but we're going to go through each and every line of this dua. 13 lines, each line filled with an ocean of benefit, ocean of knowledge, ocean of so much that we can, gain from because of this, this one supplication. So what happened with Yasir, Ammar ibn Yasir, when he prayed, although he shortened the prayer, he found his benefit in the dua that he made. So he made the prayer very short, and the people took issue with him because of that. But on the back end of shortening the prayer, he made this longer supplication, and he felt like that supplication would suffice him as opposed to making a longer prayer, prolonging his prayer. So let's go back to the beginning of the hadith. The Prophet ﷺ started by saying, Allahumma bi ilmika al-ghayb wa qudratika ala khalq. Oh Allah, I ask you by your knowledge of the unseen and your power over your creation. Why did the Prophet ﷺ begin his dua with this? And if you notice, the Prophet ﷺ almost never begins his dua with just asking for what he wanted. He began his dua by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by, mentioning some of the names and qualities of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because this is the way that, in human interaction, it would be considered flattering. Right? You want something from someone, you come, you flatter them, you say something nice about them, and you try to win their good graces. So to another human being, this would be considered flattery. To Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is considered worship. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves to be praised. Allah loves to be praised. He loves to be praised for His qualities. He loves to be praised for the things that He has done for His creation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves to be praised by mentioning His names, subhanahu wa ta'ala. He loves that. He loves it. And that would gain Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's attention. That would gain Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's response quicker, opposed to you just raising your hands and saying, oh Allah, forgive me. Oh Allah, grant me this. Oh Allah, give me that. No, you start off with praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Oh Allah, you're this. Oh Allah, you're that. Oh Allah, you're this and that. Gaining, you want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's, you want Him to respond. You want Him to pay attention. You want Him to focus on you and see your need at that moment. You want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to see that you are really sincere and that you really want what you're asking for. A lot of times we raise our hands and we don't really want what we're asking for. We ask for it in a manner that shows that we're really not concerned, or we really don't care too much whether or not He gives it to us. We really don't care. Evidence by the way that we approached it. It's just like if you want to, borrow some money from someone and you go to a person and say, yo, let me borrow a couple dollars. And the person is looking at you like, that's how you ask for money? So obviously you really didn't want it because you didn't even care about your approach. You didn't even care about how you approached the person to ask them for it. So obviously you didn't care. And the same thing applies when you are asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for something. If you really wanted it, then you would put more effort in, your bidayah, your prelude, your beginning, how you started off asking him for it. You would put a lot of energy and effort into that. But if you just raise your hands, oh Allah, give me this, oh Allah, make this happen for me, oh Allah, bless me with this, and then you put your hands down and walk away, you didn't really want what you asked for. You didn't really want what you asked for. And that is evidenced by the fact that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, tests you by not giving it to you when you ask for it, you eventually give up asking for it anyway. Maybe Allah didn't want me to have it, so therefore I'm not going to make dua for it anymore. Obviously it's not written for me. You give up. You give up asking for it, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't give it to you anyway. So, it's a whole science behind making dua. It's a whole, strategy, behind making dua that we learn from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he began this dua with what is known as tawassul. Tawassul, or seeking a means of approach to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, can be done in a few ways Islamically. A tawassul means to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for something that you want by way of something that you did, or by asking him by his names, as in this case, asking him by one of his qualities. We all know the hadith of the 3 men from Bani Israel who was trapped in a cave. Right? They were trapped in a cave. They went into a cave, to spend the night, and a boulder fell down on the mouth of the cave. And as a result of that, they couldn't get out. And so they began to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by their good deeds. Oh Allah, I did this. One of them said, I had a cousin. I loved her like any man would love a woman. And, they, got into a situation, and then he told her to keep the money. And he said, oh Allah, if I did that, seeking your pleasure, then move the rock so we can get out. So basically asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for something that you want by way of some good deed that you did only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's sake. Or, as in the case of this hadith, making tawassul, asking Allah for something by way of mentioning some of his names and qualities, his attributes. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves to be called on by his names and attributes. As Allah says in the Quran, وَلِلَّهِ الْأَسْمَاءُ الْحُسْنَى فَادْعُوهُ بِهَا. To Allah belongs the most beautiful names. Call on him by those names. As human beings, when a person calls on you and they say, hey, Habibi, oh my beloved, oh Habibati, oh my beloved sister, oh this or that, we consider it flattery, but we're still moved. We're still motivated. Our heart is still softened towards that person. Our heart still inclines towards that person because the person is trying to get in there. It's trying to win our good graces. The person is trying to gain our attention by mentioning the good qualities. Oh, this person, he's this, he's that, he's this, he's that. And you're looking and you might be uncomfortable with it, but there's a part of you that actually enjoys being called on by those qualities or by those names. Yeah, I know this brother, he's this, he's that, mashallah, I consider him to be this and that. And a person might say humbly, may Allah make me better than what you think I am. But deep down inside, everyone loves to be called by the most beautiful qualities that the person has. Everybody loves that. Everybody loves that, right? We choose names that, that we think will make people see, the beautiful side in us. This is where nicknames come from. Nicknames come from, sometimes in our culture as African Americans, it comes from, things that we would like to be recognized with, or things that, we would like to be known by, such and such, killer such and such. You want to be known as a killer in the community. Although it's a negative thing, but, it's something that we take pride in, Killer Rob from East New York or whatever, Killer Cam or, whatever the case may be. We use these names, and as derogatory as they may be, natasharraf biha, like we take honor. We take honor in those names because those names, we think, define some portion of our character, define some aspect of who we are. And when a person calls us by those nicknames, natasharraf biha, yani we take honor in that. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all of his names and attributes are good. Wal khair kulluhu ilayh. All good is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. بِيَدِهِ الْخَيْرِ وَإِنَّهُ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. That in his hand is all good, subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَشَرٌّ لَيْسَ إِلَيْهِ. And there's no evil that can be attributed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if we take honor in names that are derogatory and may have a negative connotation, because we take honor in that because it may describe or define a particular portion of our character or our identity, then how much more with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when his names and attributes, all of them connote and denote nothing but good and virtue. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves to be called by his names. Ya Malik, Ya Qudus, Ya Qahar, Ya Aziz, Ya Jabbar, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, Ya Razaq, Ya Qudus. Allah loves to be called on by his names. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلِلَّهِ الْأَسْمَاءُ الْحُسْنَى فَادْعُوهُ بِهَا. To Allah belongs the most beautiful names. Call on him by those names. Call on him by those names. So the Prophet ﷺ began this dua with mentioning two of the great qualities of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allahumma bi ilmika al-ghayb. Oh Allah, by your knowledge of the unseen. By your knowledge of the unseen, wa qudratika ala khalq. And by your power over your creation. And these two attributes are important because, number one, the thing that you are getting ready to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for, no one knows the affairs of the unseen except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What is left of your life and what is after your life, what is in your death, no one knows whether there's any good in that or bad in that except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So basically, you are leaving that in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Tafweed. So the first issue is tawassul, to call on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by his names and his attributes. Number two is what is known as tafweed. Tafweed, ufawwidu amri ilallah, is to put all of your affairs in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, leaving it up to Allah to decide. And although we say that at times because religiously we want to sound in sync with religion, or we just, that's just, the jargon, we, just kind of regurgitate, generation after generation, inshallah, I'm going to just leave it in Allah's hands. But you're not actually leaving it in Allah's hands. You're actually taking it into your own hands, right? You're not leaving it in Allah's hands, all right? So we have to go back and analyze ourselves, but truly putting it in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We say, it's in Allah's hands now. I'm putting it in Allah's hands. But yet, you're still trying to finagle. You're still trying to finesse it the way that you can to make it happen the way that you want it to happen. And then you say, at the end of the day, I'm just putting it in Allah's hands. No, you're putting it in Allah's hands because you just realized that you never had any control over the situation to begin with. You should have put it in Allah's hands from the very beginning. That doesn't mean putting it in Allah's hands. That doesn't mean that you don't tie your camel. That doesn't mean that you don't do your part. As a matter of fact, that goes hand in hand with your dua being accepted. You don't ask Allah for something and then not go after it. All right? So even putting it in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's hands is not just sitting back and doing nothing and putting it in Allah's hands, but it's coming to the realization that ultimately Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one to decide where this is going to go. So it's not an external act, it's an internal act. Putting something in the hands of Allah is not external. It's not just giving up and saying, you know what, khalas, I'm done with this, I'm putting it in Allah's hands. That's not putting it in Allah's hands. You are fooling yourself, you're mistaken. That's not putting it in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's hands. From the very beginning, saying, you know what, whatever is going to happen out of this situation, it was always in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's hands. Knowing that from the very beginning, not realizing after you tried to do what you tried to do, then realizing at the end of the day, it's in Allah's hands. No, that's your way of saying, I give up, I can't do it anymore, I can't pursue this anymore, so I'm going to just leave it to Allah. You don't leave it to Allah after you have exhausted your human energy. You put it in the hands of Allah from the very beginning. From the very beginning. And as I said, putting it in the hands of Allah doesn't mean that you sit back and do nothing. But it's the realization that no matter what the outcome is, ultimately Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the final say. Ultimately Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the final say. So these two attributes, بِعِلْمِكَ الْغَيْبِ وَقُدْرَتِكَ عَلَى الْخَلْقِ. Oh Allah, I ask you by your knowledge of the unseen and your power over your creation. So first, he asked by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's knowledge of the unseen, because what he is getting ready to ask for only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would know whether or not this affair is actually good for him. Alright? As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, عَسَىٰ أَن تَكْرَهُ شَيْئًا وَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ وَعَسَىٰ أَن تُحِبُّوا شَيْئًا وَهُوَ شَرٌ لَكُمْ وَاللَّهُ يَعْلَمُ وَأَنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, perhaps you may hate a thing and it is good for you, and you may love a thing and it is bad for you. Allah knows and you don't know. When you come to that realization, it is already in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know as a human being that you don't necessarily know. You think you know. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this life, this world has given us the illusion that we actually know what is best for us. Your money, your status, social economic status, all of these things have contributed to the illusion that we have been given, that we think that we know what is best for us. Ultimately, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what is best for you. Allah knows what is best for you. And the moment you come to that realization, then your affairs have been placed in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because you know, I don't know. Allah knows what's best for me. I don't know if this is actually good for me. Allah knows best whether or not this is good for me. And here again, that doesn't mean that you sit back and do nothing. That means that internally, all right, this is an internal aspect of worship. This is a ibadat al-qalbiyya. This is an internal act of worship that affects the heart. Coming to the realization that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows better for me than what I know for myself. Even as it relates to dua, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَيَدْعُ الْإِنسَانُ بِشَرِّ دُعَاءَهُ بِالْخَيْرِ, that the human being supplicates for evil just as often as he supplicates for good. Meaning, sometimes we make dua against ourselves just as often as we make dua for ourselves. Because we don't really know as human beings what is actually good for us. We don't. We think we do. We have the illusion that we know what is best for me. I know what is best for me. I know what is good for me. No, you don't. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what is good for you. So we could kind of change those statements that we make about ourselves, because when you say that, I know what's best for me, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala holds you to that. Allah says in the Quran, وَلَنَبَلُوَ أَخْبَارَهُمْ, and we will test the things that they say about themselves. So when you say things about yourself, right? I fear Allah, right? We say that all the time. I fear Allah. You know, you say to a person, you need to fear Allah. The person says real arrogantly, I fear Allah, right? Allah tests you to that. When you say things like, I know what is best for me. I don't need nobody to tell me what's best for me. I know what's best for me. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. Allah will test you to that. Allah knows what is best for you. God knows what is best for you. You don't. You're a mere human. Just learned how to walk, talk. You just grew teeth a few years ago. And now you know what is best for you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran that, this creation that was created from nutfa, فَإِذَا هُوَ خَصِيمٌ مُبِينٌ, and then he grows to become a human being who argues and debates about the existence of God. You were just a nutfa, a mixture of male and female semen, right? A murky fluid. That's what you were. That's your origin. And now you've developed into a talking, walking human being, and now you're debating about the existence of God. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. Allah mentions about the human being, لَمْ يَكُنْ شَيْئًا مَذْكُورًا, that there was a time when you weren't even something mentioned. You was a thing not even thought about. لَمْ يَكُنْ شَيْئًا مَذْكُورًا, that you wasn't even something thought about. If you were 20 years old, 25 years ago, you weren't even thought about. You were not even a thought. 30 years ago, you were not even a thought. You were not even a thought in somebody's head. Your father, 30 years ago, might not have even been thinking about having children. You were not even a thought 30 years ago. And now you're 25 years old, 27, 30 years old, and you're debating about the existence of God. You get people that come on Periscope talking about, religion is man-made. I don't believe in God. That's a theory. That's a myth. And, you 25, 30, 40 years old. 45 years ago, you was a thing not even thought of. And here you go into existence. Now you can talk. You have teeth. Your body has developed to a point where you can articulate yourself. And the first things that you begin to articulate is the non-existence of God. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by His knowledge of the unseen because He knows and we don't know. For going back to the beginning of the dua, Allahumma bi'ilmika al-ghayb wa qudratika ala khalq. O Allah, by your knowledge of the unseen, wa qudratika ala khalq, and your power over the creation. In the last, in the second part of the supplication, he said, and I ask you by your power over the creation. I ask you by your power over the creation, because the only one that can actually carry out this dua that you're getting ready to ask for is someone who has power to carry it out. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in many ayats, He will end the ayat with two of His names, two of His attributes. In many ayats, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about, let's go back to the ayat where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the thief. Right? In the beginning of the ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالسَّارِقُ وَالسَّارِقَةُ فَاقْطَعُوا أَيْدِيَهُمَا جَزَاءً مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَنَكَالًا. That the female thief, the female thief and the male thief, وَالسَّارِقُ the male thief and the female thief cut off the hand, جَزَاءً مِّنَ اللَّهِ, as a recompense from Allah and as a humiliation for them in the society. Wallahu azizun hakim. Wallahu azizun hakim. Why did Allah end the ayat with Aziz and Hakim? And if you always notice that at the end of the ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if He ends the ayah with two of His attributes or two of His names, it is always munasib. It is always consistent with the theme or the concept that is the main concept in the ayah. Always. Allah never mentions two of His names, two of His attributes that are inconsistent with the theme of the ayah. So in this ayah, Allah is talking about cutting off the hand of the thief. Right? As a recompense from Allah and a humiliation for them in the community. And then He ends the ayah with Wallahu Azizun Hakim. Azizun Hakim. Why did He end the ayah with Aziz and Hakim? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Aziz. He is mighty and powerful. فَيَحْكُمْ لِمَا يُرِيدُ. And so therefore He judges and He sanctions and He institutes laws based upon how He decides subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the only person that can do that, or the only one that can do that, is someone who has the power to do so. You can enact laws, you can establish laws all you want. If you do not have the manpower to enforce them, those laws mean absolutely nothing. They mean nothing. As a parent in the home, you set laws and rules and guidelines for your children. If you don't enforce them, the children will run all over you. They don't care about your laws, about your guidelines, about your rules of the home, because you don't enforce them. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Wallahu Azizun Hakim. Allah is Aziz, He's mighty. Wa Hakim, and He institutes laws. He sanctions because He is Aziz. So the reason why we ask Allah by His knowledge of the unseen is because what we are getting ready to ask Him is related to something from the unseen that only Allah knows. And number two, we ask Allah by His power over His creation, because the only one that can carry out what we are actually about to ask for is someone who has power and might like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Azizun dhuntiqam. He is Aziz, He is powerful and mighty, and He has the ability to extract retribution. Only someone who is powerful and mighty can extract retribution and not fear the consequence. There's people who go get retribution, but then they're in fear. They live their lives in fear. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Azizun dhuntiqam. He's Aziz, He is mighty and powerful, and He extracts retribution without any fear of retaliation. Without any fear of retaliation. So just to show you the beginning of the dua, just so powerful. The meanings of these dua, these supplications, as I mentioned, it's like an ocean. And as the scholars say, "Man la yuhsinu as-sibaha yushiku an yaghraq." That he who does not know how to swim is perhaps going to drown. So learn how to swim as we go through the meanings of this dua bi-idhnillahi ta'ala, so that you don't drown. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bi-ilmika al-ghayb wa qudratika ala khalq. Oh Allah, we ask You for Your knowledge of the unseen and Your power over Your creation. Now what are we getting ready to ask for? So we led with mentioning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's names, which is known as tawassul, to ask Allah about His names and attributes. So when you raise your hand to make dua, always start with praising Allah and mentioning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Oh Allah, you are the most merciful. You are the most merciful of those who have mercy. Anta arhamur rahimin wa anta ahkamul hakimin. Oh Allah, you are the most merciful of those who have mercy. Oh Allah, you are the most just of those who have just, or of those who are established justice. Oh Allah, you have power over all things. Anta ala kulli shay'in qadir. Oh Allah, Anta hayyul qayyum. You are the everlasting, you are the ever-living, the self-subsisting. Oh Allah, you are this and that. Begin to praise Allah before you ask for what you want. Because this way, you show Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you really, really want what you're asking for. You really want what you're asking for. And not that you just raise your hand, oh Allah, give me this, oh Allah, give me that, oh Allah, bless me with this, oh Allah, extend this for me, and then you put your hands down and walk away. You don't really want what you're asking for. You don't really want what you're asking for. So now, what did the Prophet ﷺ lead with? He said, أحيني ما علمت الحياة خير لي وتوفني إذا علمت الوفاة خير لي. Oh Allah, give me life so as long as you know that life is better for me, and take my life so as long as you know that death is better for me. Deep. This is the type of dua that only a person who is ready to die, is prepared for death, can actually make. Someone who is really not sure about death, they don't know what's on the other side, they're not, really, not really ready to meet their creator. They're not, not really totally, sold on the whole idea of an afterlife. There's no way in the world that they could make this dua. You are basically asking Allah to allow my life to continue so as long as you see that there's benefit in my life for me, and to take my life from me so as long as you know that death is more beneficial for me. This in itself is going to require probably another lecture. Just the meaning of this is deep. This is the dua that Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah ta'ala made towards the ending of his life. Imam al-Bukhari was boycotted and warned against even by some of his own contemporaries, by his Sheikh Muhammad ibn Yahya al-Dhuhli, who was unfortunately mubtala bil-hiqd wal-hasad. He was tested with jealousy and envy for Imam al-Bukhari, who was one of his students. And we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from being tested with jealousy and envy. Anybody could be tested with that. And we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never test us with that. It's a very ugly disease, and it takes a long time to get rid of. Being tested with the mard of hasad, the disease of jealousy and envy. So he was jealous of Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah ta'ala. And so he told a lie on Imam al-Bukhari, which eventually caused people to stay away from him and to avoid his circles of knowledge, to the point where Imam al-Bukhari would go from Baghdad all the way to Mecca and would find anybody that would sit with him and take knowledge from him. Here's this Bahr al-Ilm, this ocean of knowledge. Sahih al-Bukhari is 7,000 and some odd hadith that is mukhtasar, that is the concise version. There were so many hadith in the original Sahih al-Bukhari, he had to take the hadith out so that people could actually read his book. Because if he had left the amount of hadith that would in there from the beginning, people would not have read his book. It's only 7,000 and some odd hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari now, and that is mukhtasar. That is the concise version. And Imam al-Bukhari, rahimahullah ta'ala, this bahr, this ocean of knowledge, people wouldn't even sit at his feet, sit and learn from him. The most authentic book after the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala فضل عليه بهذا الفضل. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, gave him this virtue, gave him this blessing of having the most authentic book in the tradition of Islam, in the history of Islam. Not a book has been written that is comparable to it to date. And ma'adhalika, along with that, people wouldn't even sit in his classes and learn from him, because people had lied on him and had talked about him to such a degree that there became over him a gray cloud that people wanted to stay away from. Imam al-Bukhari, rahimahullah ta'ala, once he came to the realization that no one wanted to sit in his lessons and he couldn't teach anybody anymore, he realized that there was probably no more benefit in his life. And he supplicated. He made this dua, Allahumma in kanat al-hayat khayrun li fa'ahyini wa in kanat al-wafat khayrun li fatawaffini. Oh Allah, if living is better for me, then let me live. And if dying is better for me, then let me die. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took his soul days after he made this dua. Days after he made this dua, rahimahullah ta'ala. So we're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, oh Allah, if you know that living for me is better for me, then allow me to live. And if you know that death is better for me, then allow me to die. So is this a contradiction? Because the Prophet ﷺ mentioned in another hadith, لا يتمنين أحدكم الموت لدر نزل به فإن كان لا بد فليقول إلى آخر الحديث. The Prophet ﷺ said, none of you should desire death because of some musibah, because of some dur, because of some musa'ib, because of some calamity that befalls him. None of you should desire death because of a calamity or because some adversity befell you. He said, and if you have to say, or if you have to desire death, then you should say, oh Allah, allow me to live so as long as living is better for me, and oh Allah, allow me to die if dying is better for me. In kana la bud. If you have to, it's just absolute for you that you are feeling this way, then you should say. So is there a contradiction between the statement of the Prophet ﷺ, none of you should desire death because of a calamity that befell him, and the statement of the Prophet ﷺ, oh Allah, allow me to die if dying is better for me? Is there a contradiction between the two? Absolutely not. There's no contradiction between the statements of the Prophet ﷺ. Why? Because in the dua, you're not desiring death. To say, Allahumma in kanat al-wafat khayrun li fatawaffani, oh Allah, if death is better for me, then let me die. That's not you desiring death. That is tafweed. That is you putting that choice, that decision in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're not desiring death. You're saying to Allah, if you know, oh Allah, in your knowledge that death is better for me, because for some people, death is better for them than living. How? I'll say it again. For some people, death is better for them than living. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالْفِتْنَةُ أَكْبَرَ مِنَ الْقَتْلِ. And fitna is worse than being killed. Meaning, to be tested in your religion and die as a disbeliever, having apostated from your religion, then life obviously was more of a trial for you than to just die as a believer, than death. Death is easier for you than to live, right? Which is why we shouldn't anticipate living during the time of the Dajjal. No one should say, I wish I could live to see during the time of the Dajjal. Or to say vice versa, I wish I would have lived during the time of the Prophet ﷺ. That was severe trial and tribulation. Who knows that if you lived during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, whether you would have even remained a believer, whether you would have even believed at all. How many hypocrites were around the Prophet ﷺ every day and they never accepted Islam? As some of the scholars, they say, لا تعجبك جلساؤك فكان المنافقون حول النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم ومع ذلك لم يدخلوا في الإسلام. Do not become amazed because you hang out with righteous people. Don't become amazed with yourself. Don't become, pleased with yourself because all your circle, your squad, are people that you consider to be righteous people. You hang around students of knowledge. I be around the students of knowledge. I hang around the sheikhs. I'm around the scholars. You have people who say things like that, as if that gives you any type of guarantee. As if that gives you any type of guarantee because you hang around scholars. We know people, students of knowledge, who've, been around. We know people who've been around scholars, been around Sheikh Rabi'a, been around Fulan and Fulan from amongst the scholars, and today are not even practicing Muslims. Today are not even Muslims, have apostated from Islam. That being around scholars don't guarantee you anything. I got the Sheikh's number in my phone, I'm going to call the Sheikh. And then these are the same people you still falling into zina, falling into adultery, falling into, using drugs and hanging around drug dealers, but you got the sheikh number in your phone. You can call the sheikh tomorrow. You can call this sheikh, or you can call this student of knowledge. That doesn't guarantee you anything. That doesn't guarantee you anything. But لا تعجبك جلساؤك. Don't allow the people that you sit with, your righteous friends, to amaze you or to deceive you. He said because the hypocrites were surrounded. They were around the Prophet ﷺ in Medina, and along with that, they still never entered into Islam. They were around the Prophet ﷺ, and they still did not become Muslim. So, just because you hang around righteous people don't necessarily mean that you are righteous or that you will enter into any fold of righteousness. The hypocrites were around the Prophet ﷺ, and they never even entered into Islam. All right, so we're not asking for death. We're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to decide for us. Oh Allah, Allahumma ahyini, as'aluka al-hayat idha kanat al-hayat khayrun li. Oh Allah, I ask you for life if life is better for me. So let's go back to the beginning of the dua. The Prophet ﷺ said, Allahumma bi ilmika al-ghayb wa qudratika ala khalq. Oh Allah, I ask you by your knowledge of the unseen and your power over your creation. Ahyini ma alimta al-hayat khayrun li. Ahyini ma alimta al-hayat khayrun li. Ahyini ma alimta al-hayat khayrun li. Wa tawaffani idha alimta al-wafat khayrun li. Wa tawaffani idha kanat al-wafat khayrun li. So you're asking Allah, Ahyini idha alimta al-hayat khayrun li. Oh Allah, give me life so as long as you know that life is better for me. Wa tawaffani idha kanat al-wafat khayrun li. Wa tawaffani idha kanat al-wafat khayrun li. Wa tawaffani idha kanat al-wafat khayrun li. So we'll say the whole dua, the whole first portion of the dua. Allahumma بقدرتك بعلمك الغيب اللهم بعلمك الغيب وقدرتك على الخلق أحيني ما علمت الحياة خير لي وتوفني إذا كانت الوفاة خير لي. Oh Allah, I ask you by your knowledge of the unseen and your power over your creation, give me life so as long as living is better for me, and to give me death so as long as death is better for me. So is this a contradiction that the Prophet ﷺ is telling us not to desire death, but then telling us to ask for death? Is that a contradiction? No, because we're not actually asking for death. We're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to decide for us. We're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to decide for us. وَقَدْ روي عن الفضل أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم دخل على عباس وهو يشتكي فتمنى الموت فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يا عمي يا عباس يا عمي لا تتمنى الموت إن كنت محسنا تزداد إحسانا إلى إحسانك خير لك وإن كنت مسيئا فإن تؤخر تستعجب خيرا لك فلا تتمنى الموت رواه أحمد والطبراني. On the authority of Fadl, very beautiful incident. On the authority of Fadl, she said that the Prophet ﷺ entered upon his uncle Abbas one day, and Abbas was complaining about his poor health, yashtaki, complaining about his poor health and, desiring, وَيَتَمَنَّى الْمَوْتِ, and he was desiring death. He wanted to die, right? He wanted to die. And the Prophet ﷺ said to him, listen to what he said to him. He said, Ya ammi, he said, oh my uncle, la tatamanna al-maut, don't desire death. Don't want or long for death. He said, in kunta muhsinan, he said, if you are a doer of good, right? Tazdadu imanan ila imanika khayrun laka. Then to increase in your good deeds every day is better for you. It's better for you than death. Because when you die, in qata al-amal, your deeds are cut off from you. That's it. You don't get a chance to do any more good deeds. Some people are going to die and wish to come back to go do some more good deeds. As Allah says in the Quran, حَتَّى إِذَا جَاءَ أَحَدُهُمُ الْمَوْتِ قَالَ رَبِّ ارْجِعُونَ لَعَلِّي أَعْمَلُ صَالِحًا فِيمَا تَرَكْتُ. That when death comes to one of them, they say, قَالَ قَالَ رَبِّ رِجِعُونَ. Oh Allah, send me back. Oh Allah, send me back. Let me do some more good deeds that I neglected to do before. Because when you die, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, إِذَا مَاتَ ابْنُ آدَمْ انْقَطَعَ عَمَلُهُ إِلَّا مِنْ ثَلَاثٍ. And when the son of Adam dies, all of his deeds are cut off. انْقَطَعَ عَمَلُهُ. Your deeds are done. You can't do any more for yourself. You're done. So to desire death is basically to hasten or to sign your own certificate of intihal amal, that your deeds are done. You want to sign that contract? You want to say, all right, I'm done doing deeds. I'm done doing good deeds. Khalas, I'm done. You want to sign that contract? Or do you want, to that to be extended to you to do more good? So the Prophet ﷺ said to his uncle, Ya Ammi, O Abbas, O my uncle, La tatamanna al-maut. Don't desire death. He said, In kunta muhsinan, if you are a good doer, if you do good deeds, tazdadu ihsanan ila ihsanan khayru laka. Then for you to increase your good deeds on top of the good deeds you already have, it's better for you than death. He said, Well, in kunta muhsinan or musi'an, and if you are a sinner, right? If you are a sinner, then you definitely should not desire death, right? He said, if you are a sinner, فَإِن تُؤَخَّرْ, then to have your life to be prolonged for you, تَسْتَعْتِبْ خَيْرًا لَكَ فَلَا تَتَمَنَّ الْمَوْتِ. He said, so if you are a sinner, then to have your life prolonged for you will give you time to repent and make it right with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that is better for you, so don't desire death. You run into someone and you see them complaining about life. You hear them making, innuendos about suicide, innuendos about, not wanting to live anymore. Then this should be the type of conversation, the mode of the conversation that you should have with that person. That you shouldn't desire death, because when you desire death, you've forfeited your opportunity to make it right with God. And after this, there's eternity. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't get another shot at this. This is it. You don't get another shot at life. As it was mentioned in the hadith of Qudsi, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Ya ibn Adam, khalaqtuka li nafsi fala tal'ab. Oh child of Adam, I created you for me, so don't play. Don't play around with your life. Your life is serious. Allah created you for Him. You got serious work to do. It's like you get hired at a job, a prestigious job, where you have a huge responsibility. You don't go to work every day, lackadaisical. You get up on time, make sure you got your coffee, make sure you got your briefcase, make sure you're at the work on time, because you know that you have a heavy workload. People are depending on you. Your job depends on you. All right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hired you for a greater job. Allah hired you to do ibadah. Allah hired you. He purchased your soul at the expense of you doing ibadah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, إِنَّ اللَّهَ اشْتَرَى مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ أَنفُسَهُمْ وَأَمْوَالَهُمْ بِأَنَّ لَهُمُ الْجَنَّةِ. That indeed Allah has purchased from the believers their souls and their wealth and their souls in exchange for Jannah, in exchange for paradise. Allah has already purchased your soul. You belong to Him. You belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He owns you. He owns your soul. My soul is not for sale to anybody. My soul is not for sale. إِنَّ اللَّهَ اشْتَرَى مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ أَنفُسَهُمْ وَأَمْوَالَهُمْ بِأَنَّ لَهُمُ الْجَنَّةِ. Allah has purchased from the believers their souls and their wealth in exchange for Jannah. Allah has already purchased my soul. I don't have anything to sell you. Shaitan is trying to purchase your soul. This dunya, this world will give you itself in exchange for your soul. Look at how many people who have the world, have millions and millions, brag and argue about how many millions of dollars they made last year. All right? You got this boxer walking around with $1 million in a duffel bag. You got, female rappers arguing, you got Serena Williams arguing with Nicki Minaj on Twitter about how many millions of dollars she made, and they arguing about how much money they have, right? All at the expense of what? They sold their soul in the process for that. They don't have a soul, soulless. You got all the money in the world, but you don't even have your soul, the most important part of you. What makes you you? What makes you you is your soul. The essence, the origin of you is your soul, your ruh. روح الشيء يعني قلب الشيء, the soul of a thing. Arabs, they use the soul as a metaphor for the core of something, for the essence of something. روح الصلاة al-khushu'. The soul of prayer is khushu', is to have consciousness of Allah in your prayer. That's the soul of the prayer. Ruh, the ruh of the salah. Ruh al-shay, the soul of a thing is the origin, the essence, the asl of that thing. And the ruh al-insan, the soul of the human being, is who you are. It's who you are, which is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala لا ينظر إلى صوركم ولا إلى أجسامكم لكن ينظر إلى قلوبكم وأعمالكم. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that Allah doesn't look at your physical makeup, He doesn't look at your physical bodies or your shapes. Allah doesn't care about your shape. Allah doesn't care about your breast size, sister. Allah doesn't care about the size of your backside. Allah doesn't care if you get this tucked or get that tucked or get that worked on or not worked. Allah doesn't care about all of that. Inna Allah la yanzur ila suwarikum wa la ila ajsamikum. Allah doesn't look at your bodies and the way that you're shaped. Lakin yanzur ila qulubikum wa a'malikum. But Allah looks at your hearts and your deeds. Look into your soul, your heart. The soul of you, the essence of you. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, my soul is not for sale. Allah has already purchased that. So, people who find themselves in those type of situations find themselves constantly bouncing from job to job, career to career, marriage to marriage, situation to situation. Always find yourself bouncing because your soul is not for sale. I'm sorry. I'm not selling my soul to nobody, no institution, no organization, no company, no person, no nothing. My soul has already been purchased. So if you after my soul, you will be disappointed because my soul doesn't belong to anyone but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's it. That's it. If I could die with my soul in my hand and no money in my hand, then I die a successful man. You die with your money in your hand and your soul in the hand of somebody else, then consider yourself muflis. Consider yourself bankrupt and in need of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy. Now, so the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told his uncle, don't desire death. There's nothing that can come out of that. Don't desire death, because in death, your deeds are done. You can't do anything more. And if you're relying on your children, man, I'm not relying on my children to do anything for me. And I have plenty of children, and I'm not relying on them to do anything for me after my death. It would be great. It would be virtuous, right? For them to, go make hajj on my behalf, go make umrah on my behalf, give sadaqah on my behalf, fast on my behalf, do some act of good on my behalf. That would be a virtue. That would be a fadl. That would be a virtue, but I'm not relying on that. I'm not dependent on that. I'm doing for me. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, لِكُلٍّ دَرَجَاتٌ مِمَّا عَمِلُوا. And everyone will have a degree in paradise based upon the deeds that he or she has done. So I'm not worried about what somebody will do for me after my death. I'm worried about what I can do for myself during my life. During my life. So, in this first portion of the hadith, we have so many issues. Number one, a tawassul, seeking the means of approach to get Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to respond to your dua. And in this hadith is by praising Allah, mentioning His names as He loves to be called on by His names. Number two, a tafweed, putting your affairs in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Leaving your affairs in the hands of Allah, asking Allah that if you know that living is better for me, then let me live. And if you know that dying for me is better, then take my life. For some people, dying is actually worse for them than living. They might have been better off still alive. For some people, death, right, is worse for them than living. So you have people who, take their lives. They go and they commit suicide, right? And as the scholars say, ينتقل من عذاب إلى عذاب أكبر. They went from one portion of punishment to an even greater portion of punishment, which is the punishment of the grave. You want to hasten that? You want to hasten your punishment in the grave? You should want to live, subhanAllah, you should want to live as long as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows for you to live. And living is good for you. قال العلماء قد يصاب الإنسان ببلايا كثيرة ليس فيها خير ولم يرد لم يرد الله سبحانه وتعالى به خيرا فالكفار يصابون بمصائب كثيرة ومع هذا يبقون على كفرهم حتى يموتوا عليه وهؤلاء بلا شك لم يرد الله بهم خيرا. The scholars, they say, perhaps an individual, and I'll end with this point, perhaps an individual, as we're talking about, فَلَيْسَ كُلُّ مَوْتٍ رَاحَةٍ, not every death is peaceful. We say, rest in peace. Wallah al-azim, I hate that term. And as a Muslim who understands anything about death, you should refrain from using that term. Whether for a Muslim or non-Muslim, we don't say rest in peace, man. Because death is not peaceful for everybody. فَلَيْسَ كُلَّ مَوْتٍ رَاحَةٍ. لَيْسَ كُلَّ مَوْتٍ رَاحَةً. Not every death is peaceful. Trust me. Not every death is peaceful. So stop saying rest in peace, because people are not resting in peace. People are being tortured in their graves. They're being tortured in their graves. There's no resting in peace. That's not for everybody. All right? So the scholars, they say, قَدْ يُصَابُ الْإِنسَانِ بِبَلَايَا كَثِيرًا. A person could be afflicted with many calamities in life. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not mean by those calamities any good for that person. The calamities are there to push the person further and further and further away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is after Allah has given the person ample opportunity. Opportunities with God are not endless, are not continuous. Eventually they come to a halt. In this life, as well as in the hereafter. Opportunities that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala extends to us in this life, they eventually come to a halt. Allah is not going to keep extending the rope to you and you keep taking the opportunities that He gives you for granted. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا ثُمَّ كَفَرُوا ثُمَّ آمَنُوا ثُمَّ كَفَرُوا ثُمَّ ازْدَادُوا كُفْرًا لَنْ يَغْفِرَ اللَّهُ لَهُمْ وَلَا يَهْدِيَهُمْ طَرِيقًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, indeed, those who believe and then disbelieve, and then believe and then disbelieve, and then increase in their disbelief, Allah will never forgive them, nor will He guide them aright, nor will He guide them to the right path. Showing you that eventually, once you decide misguidance for yourself, eventually Allah stops extending those opportunities for you, because you have already signed off that you want to go to the hellfire. That's what you want. So Allah stops extending, opportunities. Al-Furas. قَدْ انْقَطَعَتْ الْفُرَص. The opportunities have stopped. They have desist. Because you have shown Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that this is the path that you have chosen for yourself, and this is what you want. فَلَمَّا زَاغُوا أَزَاغَ اللَّهُ قُلُوبَهُم. That when they decided to go astray, Allah allowed their hearts to go astray, because this was the path that you decided for yourself. So He said, perhaps a man could be tested, tried with calamity and adversity, with many calamities and many adversities. فَلَيْسَ فِيهَا خَيْرٌ. Then there's no good in those adversities and calamities. وَلَمْ يُرِدِ اللَّهُ بِهِ خَيْرًا. And Allah does not will for you any good. فالكفار, some people who disbelieve in God, يصابون بمصائب كثيرة. They are tested with many calamities in life. ومع هذا يبقون على كفرهم حتى يموتوا عليه. And along with that, many of them die on kufr, on disbelief. Many of them remain disbelievers, and they never repent and turn back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, He said this is a clear indication that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not want good for them. So to desire death in that situation is basically hastening a greater punishment for yourself. أما أن تتمنى الموت فأنت لا تدري ربما يكون الموت شرا عليه ولا يحصل له به راحة فليس كل راحة ليس كل موتا راحة. He said, perhaps you may desire death. And this is something, if you know someone who's struggling with life, that, don't see value in their lives, and, maybe they don't say they want to die. All right. Because a person that desires death doesn't necessarily say verbally, I don't want to live anymore. Right. They may live a very reckless lifestyle. a very risky lifestyle, all right, engage in risky behaviors, which is an indication that they don't have any value in their lives. We know Muslims, young Muslim children who, engage in very risky behaviors. And it's a clear indication that they have absolutely no value for their lives. And you can simply explain to them that not every death is a peaceful death. Understand that. The behavior that you are exuding, the behavior that you are engaging in, is very risky behaviors that may in fact be a cause for your death. And not every death is a peaceful death. We don't say rest in peace as Muslims. فَلَيْسَ كُلُّ مَوْتٍ رَاحَةً. Not every death is peaceful. All right? He says, so perhaps a person may desire death, and perhaps death is even worse for him than living. You think life is bad for you now. What do you think is going to happen once you transfer or transition over into the next world, right? The life of the barzakh, right? And have to deal with the punishment of the grave. So he said, فَإِذَا نَهَى النَّبِيُّ صلى الله عليه وسلم أن الإنسان عن تمني الموت فكيف بمن يقتل نفسه. He says, so if the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم forbade us from desiring death, then what about the person who actually kills himself? The Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم forbade us from desiring death, then what do you think about the person who actually goes and kills him or herself? And this actually happens with many Muslims. فَإِنْتَقَلَ إِلَىٰ عَذَابٍ أَشَدٍ. He goes from one punishment to an even greater punishment. All right? So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allahumma bi'ilmika al-ghayb wa qudratika ala khalq أحيني ما علمت الحياة خير لي وتوفني إذا كانت الوفاة خير لي. Oh Allah, I ask you, by your knowledge of the unseen and your power over your creation, give me life so as long as you know that life is better for me, and give me death so as long as you know that death is better for me. And this concludes this portion of this hadith, inshallah ta'ala. We'll revisit this again on Tuesday, inshallah, on Tuesday or Wednesday, I'm not sure. I'll post it on my Facebook page and as well as my Twitter page, and I'll post the hadith inshallah ta'ala on the Facebook page, so you'll have the whole hadith in its entirety. You'll have the whole hadith there inshallah ta'ala. I'll open the chat for a few minutes for questions and answers, or questions and statements bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallama tasliman kathira wa akhiru da'wana anil hamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.